Oh. I'd like to call the meeting of the Education and Government Committee to order. First up, any discussion from committee members or legislators? Hearing none, I actually have a question I meant to bring up under the Economic Development Planning meeting. I got a call from somebody on a town planning board. Did we recently make a appointment to the planning board for District 3?
Sarah.
Is she in District 3?
No.
Okay. Can we do that? I just remembered it myself.
I believe I'll look into it and get back to you.
That was just the question that was posed to me.
I need to look at the policy.
Yeah.
I'm hesitant to take an
Yeah.
official position without looking again at what established the planning board.
All right. Very
But,
good.
I'll report back to you.
Okay, moving on to our favorite topic, charter review. Last Sunday, I believe it was at this point, I sent out an email to everybody with a new draft charter with highlighted and strikeouts and additions from what we've discussed over the last month now. And this, again, is local law C, which doesn't transfer any powers and duties. Just going through some of the big things that we've discussed. The sections on county seal, insignia, and flag have been removed. We did get, our attorney received an opinion, a past opinion from the Attorney General's office stating how a county can set an emblem. But in order to do that, we would need a verbal description of the emblem, which has been difficult to get. So at this point, I have those three sections stricken. If we do get a verbal description of the county emblem or insignia, we can include that, and because that can be adopted by a local law. But at this point, without having that information, I think it would be wise if we move forward without having those sections involved in the charter. Moving on, section 208 indicates a alteration dealing with the organizational meeting of the legislature, and the changes made there to make it so that only organizational business can be conducted at the organizational meeting, something that came up as a concern. Section 209 on the clerk changes it so that it's a coterminous appointment with the legislature. Section 210 on counsel to the legislature has been removed. The section 213 on continuous audit functions states the addition that in the event that the county legislature appoints a county auditor, as provided in the charter, the duties of the county audit committee shall be assumed by the auditor, so we don't have the duplication as we discussed. Commission on reapportionment remains as it has been. I think that's a good way to move forward at this point, because that's a real, that we could discuss for months on end by itself. It's the structure the way it's set up is there's nothing wrong or missing from the structure for appointment. We could discuss better ways, or we could discuss the what ifs, but it's functional as is, and it's not something that we're going to be this legislature will be discussing, period, and the county won't be discussing for another 5 years until the release of the 2020 census. Going through the next change was on, I believe this is what Terry you brought up in section 403A3. There was a missing line, so that was added in.
What page are we on, 12?
We're on page 16.
I'm sorry, say again?
Oh yes, 12. Sorry, 12. Yeah, it says 16 at the top, but it says 12 at the bottom.
Was everyone able to pull it up on their computers?
And that was just something that that was dropped off because there was a NISAC comment, and it was a little confusing in there.
Thank you for.
Yep.
For correct.
Let's see, moving on, the changes in here that have been made. The next one is in Health and Human Services, which is in here provisionally. We had, as I had mentioned to everybody, the State Department of Health came out with a memo last December on how to do a merged department, including public health, and it requires that the merged commissioner be approved by the state commissioner of health, and not just meet the requirements of. Right now, the same process happens with our mental health director. So it's similar process with some of these positions. So that was just added in to comply with that memo, so that, you know, if we do move forward with the consolidated department, we'll have no problems. Next, under Human Resources, Department of Human Resources, just to make it very clear, there are some other, actually right on the same page. In this county, we established in the 80s that our records management officer was our county historian, that they were one and the same. And with this, there was some concern whether the title of personnel officer was included, so it's included explicitly there that the Commissioner of Human Resources shall be the county personnel officer. Right now, they're the Director of Personnel. This just makes it explicitly clear that that's who the personnel officer is. Department of Law, there were a couple changes. One, that the county attorney shall serve coterminously with the county executive, and we wanted to add that in there because state law as it is right now establishes a 2-year term. So if we want other than a 2-year term, since our county executive is a 4-year term, it would make sense to be coterminous. We need to directly supersede that, or else the 2-year term takes effect. In section 1403 on page 25, the word deputy was changed to assistant, which I think is a more appropriate title, and was something that our county attorney had brought up at last committee meeting. And the only other red line changes in this come under the last article, general and transitional provisions. The first one being section 2401. There's a strikeout there that's a repetition of what's said earlier under county executive powers. So there's actually no transfer, but that it's in one place. Because we've seen how if you know, somebody came forward in the future and amended one of those sections and the other one wasn't amended, which happens frequently in laws, then you have a contradictory law. So this way, it's in one place, the power's still there, nothing changes in that essence, but it's just taken out there where it's really repetitive and unnecessary. And then section 2402, dealing with residency of county officers. This is an altered language after speaking with the county executive and looking at some other provisions. This language primarily coming from the city of Plattsburgh, something that the courts have looked favorably upon and it's good law. We have it on the books, and it's something that we wouldn't be the experimenter on. And just really the change says that instead of, it now reads that if any officer is required to be a resident of the municipal jurisdiction they're serving, that residency requirement shall be suspended when there is difficulty in recruiting competent employees. and such residence requirements would prove disadvantageous to the public interest. So we're still working within public officers law, but we're saying if we can't do it, we can't do it.
This is the last change, right? So we're just gonna have a little discussion.
Yes.
Shall be suspended by whom?
That's a good question.
Who makes that determination?
Who would you like it to be?
I'd like it to be me. I'd like it to be me. But that's okay.
I would suggest we could clarify it to say by the appointing official,
Okay. I think that would be a good idea.
subject to confirmation by the legislature if you want to have the double
It does two things.
safety.
It determines who does it, and it assigns some accountability for the decision.
I like it.
Okay?
The other thing that I was just speaking to the county attorney about prior to this meeting, I think it would be a wise action to move forward by removing altogether section 20 dealing with the sanitary sewer district. We've come across quite a bit more information dealing with the sanitary sewer district, and I think it would be a wise approach to treat that completely by itself. It's not currently in our charter, so this would be an addition if we put it in. And it's currently governed by a very lengthy law and a number of amendments to state law. And it would probably be best just to, I know we would like to change it, and it probably would be I think it would be a good idea to hold off and take that whole law by itself and adopt a new sanitary sewer law, whatever the title may be, remove it from here, and that way, we're sticking to, the things that we really are 100% on, where sanitary sewer district, we don't want anything. There's currently powers and duties designated to the board, and if we missed one of them, in some amendment or supplementary law or provision, and all of a sudden there's no board, who assumes that power? So it's going to take a little more work because there's quite a bit. What was provided early on dealing with the sanitary sewer district, there's actually it's probably about as thick. This is 2 pages per sheet, and it's a pretty thick law just in itself. So I think it would be best to address that later on down the road, soon hopefully, but by itself. Yes.
That sounds good.
With all of that being said, this draft that has gone out, some things that actually it includes everything that we've discussed. And as it is, unless the legislature and by no means am I asking for action by the committee tonight, because I think we should read through this again, think about it some more, but I will send out with these changes and the removal of sanitary sewer district article and the addition of the suspending authority that Duke just brought up, I'll send out a draft as is. And that's something that possibly next month I'll put on Education and Government for the second Tuesday of next month as a local law. If we get to that point, we're going to be having meetings and discussions between the two, but we'll get to that point and potentially take action on that. I'd like to get it in this final form so that I can release it to the media, release it to everybody, so that it's something that everybody's well aware of over the next month, and we can proceed in that fashion. At this point, are there any other concerns with this local law, C?
I think you did a great job in reworking this, and I don't believe I'd have any problems approving it. I was wondering if it would be, good practice to get a opinion from the county attorney as to the whole document and her thought process. I would prefer to have that and
Absolutely.
move it quickly and just stick with it.
And I'll add, and I'll turn the floor over to Ms. Mannion afterwards, that the document is currently also being reviewed by NISAC's counsel. So it's being looked over by a number of different individuals. And I know the county attorney has been dedicating quite a bit of time to charter revision, and I log on to my email at the end of the day and I see a couple emails with attorney general opinions, and so I think that's good, and it's going to end up yielding a much better result. So if there's anything you'd like to add.
Just that I certainly am still going through it. And I will provide my thoughts on it as we go along, and I will be assured I am looking at this pretty closely.
Well, I just think it's just prudent to do it that way.
No, I appreciate that, and if you want, I can at your next committee meeting in next month, I could take the floor with Legislator White's blessing and go through some of my thoughts on it, if you would like, as well.
Have you run this by any of the previous people that made the original charter?
No. Actually, Dr. Swanger has a copy. He has looked it over. So yes.
You have?
Yes. And I've talked with Supervisor Coddington a number of times about some of the provisions. So yes.
Not to criticize what you did, but to
Absolutely.
But to basically look into it and maybe some intent was changed or anything that they may have some other reason for that.
Absolutely.
So that was the only reason I brought it up.
Yep.
Okay.
All right. So we're good with that. Now I'll pose the question to you guys. Do you want to talk more about charter? Local law D. No? We're good?
We're good?
We're good. So we'll talk about local law D maybe next week, maybe June. We gotta, local law C has got to be adopted before local law D nonetheless, so we've got some time. And frankly, the provisions in local law D, just to, bring it all up again, right now the charter is contradictory in term limits for the county legislators. It says that the county legislators are limited to 4 terms in office, and the next provision says that they're limited to 4 terms in office, and then they can take a term off and have another 4 terms in office. So it's contradictory. I think the intent of it, because it's clear that the county executive has a 3-year term or 3-term limit, meaning 12 years, and it's a hard 12-year limit. I think the intent of it is to have the legislature have a hard 12-year limit, but we can discuss that. There's a couple powers and duties that just require a little alteration, or possibly should require a little alteration. And of course, dealing with the budget preparation, partially where our charter right now designates executive authority to the county treasurer. They're both elected officials. By changing that name, as NISAC has recommended, that would be a change in power or duty, could be interpreted thereas. And then any changes we want to make to the budget process. There's a few minor tweaks that have been brought up. And then just a couple clarifications that very few clarifications that have come out of the NISAC discussions on contracting and appointment authority. This was sent out, and I'll reattach it so you guys can. It's going to be a newer email on supplementary charter amendments and just some clarifying language, some suggestions. Some of it's just a discussion point, and then we'll go from there. All right. Did you have a question or thought?
I do, but it's if we're changing the charter, the treasurer and the executive, because it was elected, the treasurer is running this year, so the amendment in the charter to change the name wouldn't take effect until 4 years later?
No, it would take, the thing is that's why we have to do it subject to permissive referendum. Because it will take effect whenever So if we pass a law that changes the areas where it says county treasurer as the chief budget officer, even though the executive is designated as the chief budget officer, and we pass that law,
So we're not making the treasurer the finance, the comptroller of the county.
no, we're not gonna change any of the structure, have an appointed position, but, yeah, okay. So then it would, as long as it goes through the right channels for permissive referendum, it becomes law, and that's the
I
law.
thought you were talking about.
Okay, no.
changing to
No,
comptroller.
that would, like Commission on Reapportionment, that we can discuss. A legislature could discuss that for years on end, and they have, I'm sure. So I think, this is what, these things get to the core of making a charter that is true to its original sense, but makes it a document that's going to be strong and not have any problems with it. So, yes. I'll decide in the next couple days. I'll decide by Thursday. Any other business to come before the legislature or the committee? Hearing none, I'll make a motion to adjourn. Second by Roy, we are adjourned.